All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. I appreciate you taking the time out to go ahead and view this video. What we're going to be talking about, I'd like you to label the section number that we're going to be looking at. It's section 3-2, and we're going to be talking about proving lines parallel, okay? And so the one thing I really want to stress to you guys is very, very important that you watch this video, listen to this video very carefully, because it's probably the hardest section of the entire chapter 3, okay? Now, I wish I was in front of you, able to gauge your body language as we go over this stuff, because I can tell whether a person knows or understands what we're doing or doesn't, okay? But at the same time, you can always record and go back and listen to the explanations and make sure you're understanding things. And you know what? If it comes Monday and you just didn't catch everything, that's okay, because we're going to talk about it again Monday, and we're going to talk about it again Tuesday. So again, take notes, and then at the end of the notes, do your best on the homework, okay? The homework, again, the answers, like I've said, are online, but I want you to know how to do the problem. It's not just the answers. The answers are irrelevant to me, okay? Because if all you're doing is fishing for answers, when we go to the test, you're not going to be able to come up with them, okay? I want to know that you know how to do these problems. So please take your time, watch the video, take good notes, and I will give you credit for those come the next time I see you. Postulate 3.2, postulates versus theorems. Let's talk about that real quick. To review what we talked about in the first chapter, postulates are accepted statements in geometry. Theorems are statements that have to be proven. I equated a postulate to like the foundation of your house, okay? And you always build everything up off the foundation. If you don't have a good foundation, then you don't have a good house. Same thing's true here. In geometry, our foundation is rock solid. It's these postulates, these accepted statements that don't have to be proven. Now from there, we take those postulates and build off of them to come up with bigger and better ideas geometrically, and those are our theorems, okay? So you're going to see that here in a couple minutes. So the first postulate, let's go ahead and do this, I believe. There you go. Is if corresponding angles are congruent, then lines are parallel. And I can guarantee some of you are thinking to yourself, now wait, Mr. Couples, we did this before. I've seen this theorem or this postulate before. The answer is no, you haven't, okay? I want to strike that down. You have not seen this postulate before. Now what you did see before was if lines are parallel, then corresponding angles are congruent. It doesn't sound like a big difference, but it is. Before we knew the lines were parallel, and now we could make, we could go ahead and make claims, okay? We could make statements about those corresponding angles. Now I'm telling you, we don't know lines are parallel, but you know what? If the corresponding angles are congruent, it can lead us to those parallel lines. So we're looking at it from the complete opposite perspective. So what we're going to do for today, we're going to take a couple notes here. And the first thing I'd like you to write down on your paper is this. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. Yeah, you can. Okay. If, and then I want you to put down a 1, a 2, and you know what I'm going to do here real quick? I'm going to change colors because I think that will be better so that we can see later on. If, and then 1, 2, and 3, okay? I'm going to put down corresponding angles are congruent. Okay, now I'm going to stop right there because we're going to add 2 and 3 before we finish up the rules that we're going to be looking at today, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do, let's go to the next page here. There we go. Maybe. There we go. Okay. So the next one is the converse of the alternate interior angles theorem. So this is theorem 3.2. And here's what I want you to see. We are starting with angles 1 and 2 being congruent. And what we want to prove is that these lines A and B are going to be parallel. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, we can only base everything off of what we already know, not off of what we think we're going to know. So some of you are probably thinking, well, with the alternate interior angles, the lines have to be parallel. We don't know that yet. That's what we're proving. So as I look at that picture up there, the first thought that I have is this, or that I want you guys to have is this. 1, can we define the given anymore? And we can't really define this given more than what we already have. It's angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. That's as concrete as we can go. But the next thing is looking at the diagram, there's something that we should know. And that's this. And I hope that you're thinking it in your mind. Okay? I know angles 2 and 3 are going to be congruent because they're vertical. Okay? Now, the next step in any proof is to look back at what you already have and see if there's anything that we can derive from what we already have. So I know angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. I know angle 2 is congruent to angle 3, so what do we then know? Well, I hope that you're thinking, I know angle 1 is congruent to angle 3 by the transitive property. Okay, is it going to go? Okay, the transitive property there. Now that we know that angles 1 and 3 are congruent, well, those are corresponding angles. And I'm going to go back to our first postulate, which was this. If corresponding angles are congruent, which they are, then lines are parallel. Okay? Now, I have now proven that anytime we have congruent, too fast. There we go. Anytime we have congruent alternate interior angles, we know it leads us to that right there. Okay, the lines being parallel. So what I want you to do to add to this is this. If alternate interior angles are congruent. Okay. That's our second rule, number 2. All right, next one. Let me go ahead and first of all get rid of this. All right. And next. It's going to go. Next. There we go. Okay. The next one that we're going to look at is this. We're told that these angles here at 1 and 2, well, you know what? They're supplementary. And we want to prove that lines A and B are going to be parallel to each other because of that. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, what I'd like you to do, or what I would hope that you would do, first of all, I'm going to jot down my given. Is that going to go? My given? Okay. And then you already see the second statement up there, but let me explain why that second statement goes there. As you look at the diagram, I hope you can see that those two angles make a straight angle. They make a straight line. And so if you were to write off to the right number, statement number 2, you know what? Because those two angles come together to form a straight line, I know they will equal 180. That's justification to me as well. That's a reason, okay? But again, in a more formal definition, the definition of supplementary is that we form a straight line, and that's what I'm putting down there. Now the next thing is going to be this. If those two equations equal the same, we can take one of those 180s out and plug in angles 2 and 3 in its place. So we get something that looks like this. Okay, substitution there. Okay. Now, I'm going to look at that equation. I'm going to say, you know what? I can simplify that equation in number 3 by subtracting angle 2 from both sides. If I do that, now I've got that. Now we're in business. If I know angle 1 is congruent to angle 3, and I think back to the theorem that we just proved, which was that if alternate interior angles are congruent, the lines are parallel, I can now say, you know what? I now know that these two lines are going to be parallel to each other. And that's what I'm going to go ahead and state. Okay? So from there, we have this new theorem. If those same side interior angles, 1 and 2, are congruent, then the lines have to be parallel. So we're going to add that to our rule here. Same side interior angles are supplementary. Then, I'll put it there, then lines are parallel. Okay, and I hope that you get a chance to, I hope that your paper looks neater than mine. I'm actually going to go ahead and clear off what I have here because I've got those, the order 1, 2, and 3 memorized already. but you will have to refer back to it as we go ahead and justify the different statements here in a moment. So what I'm going to do is I want you to go ahead and draw this next picture here. Okay, go ahead and draw that picture, and I want you to go ahead and write out A, B, C, and D. So we're going to look at all four of those in a separate manner. All right. Now, as you're about to do that, I want you to go ahead and pause your computer because I'm going to continue on, and I want you to have time to write stuff out, draw it nice and neatly, and then listen to what I'm going to do. So just pause your computer real quick. I'm going to move on so I can save the amount of storage space this file's going to need. So, all right. So once you've drawn everything out, I've got angles 1 and 2 here. I think the best thing to do in this situation, until you become really good at identifying some of this stuff, is to actually draw out the 3 lines that make up angles 1 and 2. Okay? Angles 1 and 2 share a horizontal line. And angle 1 looks like that, and angle 2 looks like that. All right? Now I'm going to put down here, this is going to be point D, this is going to be point E, this is going to be point C, and this is going to be point K. Okay? And so what I know is that these angles are congruent. And so as I think about this, I look up there and I'm like, what type of angles are they? Well, I hope that you're saying they're alternate 2 angles. If I look back at my rule, number 2 says, if alternate 2 angles are congruent, then lines are parallel. So I have to know, hey, there's a pair of parallel lines up there. Which one are they? Which ones are they? Well, when I look at the original picture over here, okay, it might be hard to see which ones are parallel. But if I redraw them like I did over here, okay, I can look at that and say, you know what? The only 2 lines that could possibly be parallel would be this one right here and this one right here, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and say this. I know that ED is parallel to CK, or KC, or DE, it doesn't matter how you put it, okay, by number 2. All right? And there you go. We have justification, and we've identified the parallel lines, okay? Now, for purposes of neatness, I'm going to get rid of that chicken scratch there, and we'll take a look at angles 3 and 4. If we look at angles 3 and 4, I'm going to go ahead and draw the 2 lines that make up angle 3, and I'm going to draw the 2 lines that make up angle 4. Okay? Now, we again are told that these angles are congruent to each other. Okay? And so, again, I'm going to ask you the same question as before. What type of angles are those 2 angles? And I'd hope you'd look at them and be like, got corresponding angles. If I look at statement number 1, if corresponding angles are congruent, then lines are parallel. Sweet, I know I've got some parallel lines. All right, so which ones are they? Well, the line that's shared, remember, is called the transversal. Okay, I didn't even touch the board and I got that mark to come up. So as a result, this line right here and this line right here have to be the parallel lines. So I'm going to write this down. Line EC is parallel to line DK. Okay? And I'm going to put down here number 1 because they're corresponding angles. Okay? All right, now let's move on to the next one. Okay? We're told the angles 1 and 4 have a sum of 180. Well, again, I'm going to draw the 2 lines that make up angle 1 and the 2 lines that make up angle 4. Okay? Now, and I'm going to label those points there. Here's E, D, C, C, and K. Okay. So, we always start with the same first question, which is, what type of angles are we working with? And I hope that you look at those and say, you know what? Those are same side interior angles. I know they have a sum of 180. You know what? That fits right with statement number 3. If same side interior angles are supplementary, then lines are parallel. So I know I've got parallel lines up here. Which ones are they? Well, I hope you see that DK is the shared line. Again, that's the transversal. And so as a result, these two lines here and here have to be the parallel lines. So I'm going to write down for letter C, ED is parallel to CK by number 3. Okay? Very good. Let's go to the very last one, letter D. Angles 1 and 3 are congruent. Okay? Angles 1 and 3 are congruent. Now, I'm not actually going to draw this one out. Well, yeah, I'm not going to draw this one out. Here's what I want you to see in this one. The two lines that make up angle 1 would be this one and that one. Okay? The two lines that make up angle 3 would be this one and that one. Okay? Now, if you remember the other day when we were talking about these relationships amongst these angles, they have to share that transversal. Okay? Well, they don't share a transversal there. They don't share a line. All right? Therefore, they can't influence lines together. They're completely separate. So as a result, in number 1, letter D is going to be this. I don't know if there are any parallel lines. I can't conclude anything because there's no transversal and there's no relationship. So again, what I would write down there is no transversal equals no relationship, which equals no conclusion. Okay? And I can't hit that one home enough because if you can identify that there's no shear line, no transversal, it's the easiest problem in the entire chapter, maybe even the entire textbook. Okay? All right, now from there, let's go to some other types of examples here. Let's take a look at this one right here. I'd like you to go ahead and draw this one out for me on your paper. Okay, and again, I'd like you to pause your computer because I want to make sure that you have time to draw out the details and everything. Okay, so go ahead and do that for me. All right, now, what I see in the diagram up here is that there are 4 lines. We have line L, line M, line N, and line O, okay? And the question is going to be which lines are going to be parallel. Now, I had a student earlier, and I've had students say this in the past, you're going to pick the lines that go the same direction. Okay, well, the problem is that we've got both sets going, one set's kind of going up and to the right, one set's going up and down. So you can't claim both of them unless you know for sure that both of them are parallel. So what I would do is just pick 2 angles. And so I'm going to pick the 70 and 115. It really doesn't matter where you start. But if I pick the 70 and 115, the angles look like this. 115 degrees, 70 degrees. Okay. Those 2 angles have a sum of 185 degrees. Now let's talk about what type of angles they are. They're same side interior. They don't add up to 180, they add up to 185. So what can I conclude? Now if I put my lines down, L, N, that was a floppy N, L, N, and O. Okay, what can I conclude from the fact that those 2 angles do not add up to 180? Well, it's this. These 2 lines right here and here cannot be parallel. All right, and you can kind of tell it from that diagram right there, the way it's drawn, that they will eventually intersect. Okay. Now, I'm going to choose another pair of angles, and this time it's going to be the 115 and 65. Okay, and this is line L, line M, and line N. Okay? Now, if you add up 115 and 65, that makes 180, and those are same side interior. So as a result, I know that this line here is parallel to that line there. Okay? So it leads me to that conclusion. Let's say if you guys started over here with these 2 angles. Well, as a result of those 2 angles adding up to 175 degrees, what I know, this would be the transversal, that's the shared line. These 2 right here could not be parallel. We already proved that over here, but I was just trying to show you that if you chose the other 2 angles, it didn't matter, you got the same result. Okay? If I go with these 2 angles, 110 and 70, okay, again you see that they are supplementary, they are same side. So here's your transversal, and again this line and this line, which we already proved over here, are going to have to be parallel. Okay? So with that being said, here's what, okay, I would be looking for if same side triangles are supplementary and lines are parallel, or you can put number 3, okay? As long as you are memorizing that statement, that's the most important thing to me, okay? All right, now we've got 2 more examples here that I want to talk you through. I think there's maybe 3 more, to be honest with you. We'll have to take a look here. But as you look at the one on the left-hand side, okay, you can go ahead and draw that out for me. Again, you probably want to pause your computer, so just go ahead and draw both of them out. Okay. I hope that as you look at the one on the left-hand side, you are seeing for yourself that this angle here and this angle here, they're congruent. Okay? And I also hope, again, you're asking that first question, what type of angles are those? Well, those are same side interior angles. They're congruent. Now, I hope in your minds there's a little siren going off. You know, okay, now wait, something doesn't seem quite right here. All right? They look parallel. I mean, if I was to place a bet, I'd put a bet on it that they're parallel, okay? But the problem is this. Do we know that this angle right here is 90 degrees? Because the only way for these 2 angles to be supplementary is for them both to be 90. And the answer is no. We've talked about that before. If it's only a congruency mark, it could be 91 and 91. It could be 89 and 89. We just don't know. So in this case, there's no conclusion. We don't know if the lines are parallel or not. There's just not enough information. All right? And if I go on with the other set of congruent angles here, these 2, okay, well, we got the same problem. They may be supplementary, but we don't know. They're the same measure. So unless they're 90, we can't prove that, so there's a no conclusion right there. All right, so in that figure, we just don't have enough information. Now in the next figure, you can tell right away that there's only going to be probably 1 pair of parallel sides, if any. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, we know that this line right here and this line right here are not going to be parallel to each other. Why is that? Well, the reason is because the same side interior angles, again, they're not supplementary, okay? And if you're still struggling to see that they are same side interior angles, I hope that you go ahead and take your pencil and, you know, draw yourself out. That was a wonderful 2. 125, 100, okay? And you can see those are same side interior angles, okay? I've also seen people extend the lines beyond so they can get visual understanding right there, okay? I have no idea what that is. And I'm really hoping it will go away. Go away. There we go. Hey, the joys of live entertainment. Oh, never mind. So, you never know what's going to pop up anywhere. So, taking a look at this next one, if we go with these 2 angles here. Oh, is it going to go? Oh, sorry. Back to my pen. These 2 angles here. If I add up 55 and 125, that makes 180 degrees. Well, remember, those are same side interior angles. So the line that's shared, this line right here, is your transversal. And these 2 lines that are not the transversal have to be parallel. So BC is parallel to AD. Okay? All right. So from there, let's go ahead and get rid of that. And you can take a look there. BC is parallel to AD, and again, it's number 3. Okay? All right, let's go to the next one. I guess I have 3 more. Sorry, I underestimated here. Okay? Go ahead and draw those 2 pictures for me on your paper there, and if you want to, take a stab at it. See if you can figure out which lines, if any, are going to be parallel. And then come back and talk to me, and we'll take a look here. So pause your computer. And then I'll go on, and you can come back and get confirmation that you were correct or you were wrong. All right, now, as you look at the first one on the left-hand side of the screen, my eyes are drawn to the fact that these angles are congruent to each other. And the question then becomes, well, what type of angles are they? Now, if you can't completely tell from the picture there, if I go ahead and redraw these lines and extend them, here's a 30-degree angle and here's a 30-degree angle. Well, guess what? Those angles are corresponding, aren't they? And with corresponding angles, we have parallel lines. So corresponding angles that are congruent, then we have parallel lines. So this is T, this is U, that point right there and that point right there. Okay, this is A up here on the line, and this is R right here, and this is H right here. Okay, so the question then becomes, which lines are the parallel lines? Well, I hope you're catching on to the fact that this line right here, the shared line, is the transversal. Okay, so the other lines, this one right here and this one right here, have to be the parallel lines. So RT is parallel to HU. Now, and again, that would be by number 1, the corresponding angles. Some of you may have thought that AR is parallel to TH. Well, the problem with that is this. I agree that we know this angle is 70, and if these two angles were congruent, then we would know that the lines are parallel because they correspond to each other as well. The problem is, do we know what the measure of angle A is going to be? And the answer is no, we don't. And so we can't assume. Okay, you know what they say about assuming. Okay, don't assume. Don't ever, ever assume anything. We want to prove it, and so therefore, I don't know if AR is parallel to TH. Might be, but we don't know. Okay. All right. By now, I think you're probably catching on here. Let me go ahead and pull that first part up. Well, there's RT is parallel to HU. Okay. For the next one, we got 3 congruent angles, which is good. It gives us some things to work with. All right. I want to address angle A first of all. If I draw the lines that make up angles, the 2 angles down here, and if I draw the 2 lines that make the angle up here at A, I hope you can see that they don't share a line. Okay, the 2 with the blue lines don't share a line with the 1 with the red line. And so as a result, angle A is thrown out. There's no relationship. I can't conclude anything based off of angle A. But as far as the 2 angles, angle GHE and angle HIF, well, since they're congruent, we got to look at those 2. So looking at those 2 angles, what type of angles are they? Now, if you're struggling to see what type they are, you can always extend the line beyond. Okay? But I hope that you can see that they are corresponding to each other. Okay? And so according to statement number 1, if corresponding angles are congruent, then lines are parallel. So what do we then know? Well, this line right here, GHI, or line HI and line GI, doesn't matter, that's your transversal. And so the other 2 lines have to be the parallel ones. Now, how would you want to identify these 2? Well, I would either say line BH, line BE, or line EH. That line right there is parallel to line CI, IF, or CF. Okay? So you can say it anyway. You know, I think in a moment, let me show you what I ended up putting down. Let's clear that. Whoa, what just happened? Did not mean to do that. Okay. There we go. Whew. Made me scared. Thought I had just done something really bad. Anyways, whew. All right. Last example that I want to walk through with you right now, and then I'm going to have you try it. Ones like the very first one. Hopefully you guys can just knock this last section out. So looking at this one right here, I want you to go ahead and draw this simple picture, and I want to know which lines, if any, are parallel. Is it A is parallel to B, or C is parallel to D? Okay. Go ahead and pause your computer and take a moment and think about that. Okay, now as I look at the picture up here, let's start with the 2 angles that are not alike, these 2 right here. Now, what type of angles are they? They're corresponding, right? So as a result, if they're not the same measure, I know that a certain pair of lines are not parallel up there. Now, the lines that won't be parallel have to do with this line, and this line. So which lines aren't going to be parallel? Well, it's going to be A and B, okay? D is the transversal there, so A and B are not going to be parallel because 115 does not equal 100. The corresponding angles are not congruent. But if I go ahead and take a look at the other two angles that are congruent, so we go ahead and do this, boom, boom. That's a good sign right there. Well, what type of angles are they? Well, they're alternate interior. And when alternate interior angles are congruent, lines are parallel. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is say, yeah, C is parallel to D. Okay, oh, let me explain why. Here's your transversal. A is the transversal. The other two lines that make up the angles have to be parallel. C is parallel to D by statement number 2. Okay? So, let's take a look at the last example I have, and that is this one. Okay? I want you to, like we did on the first one, to go ahead and draw out the entire picture. And then I want you to go ahead and do A through G. When you are done with A through G, start your computer back up, finish this video up, and see if you did them correctly. Okay? I'm pretty confident, knowing your guys' ability to identify angles, that you're going to have it down. So, okay? Go ahead and pause your computer. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look at some of these. Hopefully you've done them all and have an understanding of what's going on. When I look at angles 2 and 10, again, if it helps, draw the lines that make up those two angles separate from everything. Here's 2 and here's 10. All right? Now those two angles are corresponding, and we're told that they're congruent according to A. So if they're corresponding, the transversal will be A and congruent. A is the transversal. So C and D need to be your parallel lines. Okay, so I'm going to say this. C is going to be parallel to D, okay, with a justification of, since they are corresponding, number 1. Okay, so that's letter A. For letter B, if we look at that one, 7 and 13. 7 and 13. Well, let's just do this one real quick. The two lines that make up 7 are right there and there. Two lines that make up 13 are right here and right here. Okay? So as a result, none of the lines from 7 are shared with the lines that make up angle 13. If there's no line shared, there's no transversal, no relationship, and we have no conclusion as to whether they're going to be parallel lines or not. Okay? So again, B is no conclusion. Letter C, angles 10 and 11 are supplementary. All right, well, let's look at those two. 10 and 11 are supplementary. 10 is here, 11 is there. Okay? Now, here's A, B, and D. Okay? First question, what type of angles do we have? Well, we have same side interior angles. When they're supplementary, that means that we have lines that are parallel. So as a result, D here is the transversal, and A will be parallel to B. So for letter C, A is parallel to B, number 3. Okay, same side interior angles are supplementary. Okay. Letter D, we have angle 15 is congruent to angle 10. So let's see here, 10 and 15. Well, if I redraw those two, all right, 10, 15, D, A, and B. Okay? So if we look at that, and we're told that they're congruent, okay, according to letter D, 10 and 15, the transversal between those two angles is going to be letter D. Okay, that's the shared line. And so therefore A and B will be parallel by number 2, which says if alternate two angles are congruent, then lines are parallel. Okay? So hopefully you had that. A is parallel to B, number 2. Okay? The next one, angles 14 and 16 add up to 180 degrees. So if I go ahead and do this, 14, 16, okay. Well, as I look at those two angles, those are corresponding angles. What do corresponding angles have to be in order for lines to be parallel? They have to be congruent. Do we know that they're both 90? Nope. So therefore, do we know that they're going to, well, we don't know, okay? They're not congruent. We don't know they're going to be congruent. So in this case, there's no conclusion, okay? We can't conclude anything. So that was fairly easy if you could identify what type of angles they were, okay? All right, the next one is going to be angles 9 and 14. If you look at angles 9 and 14, if I go ahead and just draw that picture out there, 9 and 14, 9, 14, okay? Those angles only influence two lines, and they intersect each other. So as a result, I'm going to put either none or no conclusion because there's just not enough information there, and I would add on that they're vertical, okay? Vertical angles don't lead us to parallel lines. It just tells us those angles are congruent to each other, okay? The last one, angles 3 and 6. We're almost done. Yes! Angles 3 and 6 are congruent. So if I go ahead and draw that picture there. 3 and 6. Here's 3, here's 6, here's A, here's B, and here's C, okay? So as I look at that, those two angles are alternate interior, and we know that they're equal to each other. Well, if that's the case, we have parallel lines. So C is our transversal, and A and B are going to be our parallel lines. So A is parallel to B by number 2 because they're alternate interior. Okay? Whew! We are done. Okay? All right. I don't think we need to do anything with that. I appreciate you and your attentiveness. I realize that I talked a lot, and I hope it wasn't like the Charlie Brown, you know, that you guys actually understood what I was saying and that you were engaged and you're like, you know what, I can go out and do some harder problems now. All right, you do have homework problems I would like you to attempt for me for the next time we're together, and I look forward to seeing you guys the next time. Have a great day, night, evening, whenever you're watching this, and I will see you later. Good night.